I was supposed to be in Bible study tonight, but somehow I couldn't get on the Zoom. So I said, let me come and do this American history with some of you people because every time I post something, I know people ain't reading it because this is some very important information that we need to know before we can move forward of all that you've been seeing lately that has been taking place that has been taking place within our government. Um, I just found this out myself because I did a little research, and it's a whole lot of American history that is lost because they stopped teaching American history due to the fact that the Democrat Party messed up the education here in the United States. As long as they can keep you ignorant, they can control you. Okay? As long as they can keep you ignorant, they can control you. Not every white American was a Klansman, okay? Not every white president did not care about the lives of the slaves. And that's why we had the Civil War, because it was the North and the South. The North wanted their slaves to be free. They wanted their slaves to be having equal opportunity and land and be able to build on their land and prosper and thrive. Okay? Because we're going to go through the history, y'all. Okay, we're going to learn some American history today. Now, the South, which was more controlled by I think they were the Confederates, they did not want the slaves to be free. They wanted the slaves to continue to live on their property, and they wanted to control, and they wanted the slaves to continue to be sharecroppers. So this is when we're going to get into the Civil War. So we're going to do some history. I pulled this up just so that we can see it. Okay, I pulled this up so that we can do some American history on President Ulysses Grant. Let me just close all. Okay, we're going to go back and Google President Ulysses Grant, and we're going to go into the history. Listen, Ulysses Grant. Let's go into read it. Let's read it together, y'all. Okay? Let's read this together in the Wikipedia. Okay, Ulysses S. Grant, born Hiram Ulysses Grant, April 27th, 1822 to July 23rd of 1885, was the 18th President of the United States, serving from 1869 to 1877. In 1865, as commanding general, Grant led the Union Army to victory in the American Civil War. Okay, this is his story here. Okay, let's go down. Grant was born in Ohio and graduated from the United States Military Academy, West Point, in 1843. He served with distinction in the Mexican American War, but resigned from the Army in 1854 and returned to the civilian life impoverished in 1861. Shortly after the Civil War began, Grant joined the Union Army and rose to prominence. After securing victories in the Western Theater in 1863, he led the Vicksburg campaign that gave Union forces control of the Mississippi River and dealt a major strategy blow to the Confederacy. President Abraham Lincoln promoted Grant to lieutenant general and command of all Union armies after his victory at Chattanooga. For 13 months, Grant fought. Robert E. Lee joined the high casualty overland campaign, which ended with the capture of Lee's army at Appomattox, where he formally surrendered to Grant. In 1866, President Andrew Johnson promoted Grant to General of the Army. Later, Grant broke with Johnson over Reconstruction policies, a war hero drawn by the sense of duty. Grant was anonymously nominated by the Republican Party and then elected president in 1868. As Grant established the post war national economy, supported congressional reconstruction and the 15th Amendment, and prosecuted the Ku Klux Klan. Under Grant, the Union was completely restored and an effective civil rights executive. Grant signed a bill to create the United States Department of Justice and worked with radical Republicans to protect African Americans during Reconstruction in 1871. He created the first Civil Service Commission, advancing the civil service more than any prior president. Grant was reelected in the 1872 presidential election, but was inundated by executive scandals during the second term. His response to the Panic of 1873 was ineffective in halting the Long Depression, which contributed to the Democrats winning the House majority in 1874. All right. Grant's Native American policy was to assimilate Indians into Anglo American culture. In Grant's foreign policy, the Alabama claims against Britain was peacefully resolved, but the Senate rejected Grant's annexation of Santo Domingo in the disputed 1876 presidential election. Grant facilitated, okay, the approval by Congress of a peaceful compromise. Leaving office in 1877, Grant undertook a world tour, becoming the first president to circumnavigate navigate the world. In 1880, he was unsuccessful obtaining the Republican nomination for a non-consecutive third term. In 1885, impoverished and dying of throat cancer, Grant wrote his memoir covering his life through the Civil War, which was posthumously published and became a major critical and financial success. At his death, Grant was the most popular American and was memorialized as a symbol of national unity. Due to the pre this so I don't know how to say that word and nationalness mythology of the lost cause of the Confederacy spread by Confederate sympathizers around the turn of the 20th century. Historically, assessments and rankings of Grant's presidency suffered considerable before they begin recovering in the 21st century. Grant's critics take a negative view of his economic mismanagement and the corruption within his administration, while his admirers emphasize his policy towards Native Americans, vigorous enforcement of civil and voting rights for African Americans, and securing North and South as a single nation within the Union. Modern scholarships has better appreciate Grant's appointment of cabinet reformers. So there's your history. You could go on and on and on and on about what he has done. So not every president of the United States that was a Republican supported slavery and supported the cruel treatment of slavery and the KKK. He even had wanted them to be, if anybody, let's go to, I know I saw it somewhere. Let's go somewhere. I know I saw it somewhere where Grant, President Grant, he was not about that, okay? Quotations, let's go on. U.S. Grant, biography, presidency, and history. It was one that I did. I did post one, okay? I'm gonna talk about him in slavery. He took on the KKK. Okay, here it is. I gotta get my glasses because this print is just too small for me. I just want people to know, does racism, where does it stem from? And this is where you're gonna understand as a foundation black American who fought for your freedom. Okay? It says Ulysses S. Grant faced numerous challenges during his presidency in 1869 to 1877. The Civil War had recently ended in 1865, ushering in the beginning of the Reconstruction era. The transition to Reconstruction altered the direction of the country, especially the lives of African Americans. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment ended slavery, extended U.S. citizenship to African Americans with equal protection under the law, and established voting rights for African American men. Black Americans also attended school, established their own churches, becoming politically active, and held political offices at the local, state, and federal level. They were overwhelmingly members of the Republican Party. See, we were part of the Republican Party before we were ushered into the Democrat Party. Let's go on. Overwhelmingly members of the Republican Party, largely due to Republican support for emancipation and civil rights. As these dramatic changes were taking place throughout Southern society, many white Southerners resented this newfound independence among African Americans and rejected the Republican Party. Some turned towards violence to maintain white supremacy and topple Republican rule in the South, as President Grant needed to find ways to curb this violence. The most well known violent white supremacist group to form during the period was the Ku Klux Klan. The Klan had rather mysterious origin. It was formed in Pulaski, Tennessee in 1866 by 6 Confederate veterans who, bored with civilians' life, founded the Klan to mainly play pranks. However, as the Klan spread throughout the South, its members' intentions became more sinister and violent. KKK members attacked freed people exercising their new rights as well as whites who supported the Republican Party. You see, they even killed white people that supported the Republican Party. Okay? Their methods includes burning black schools and churches, intimidating black and Republican voters, and even resorting to rape and murder. KKK members often wore ghoulish and disguises and committed their crimes at night, terrifying their victims. Worse, the Klan's goals were supported by many local officials as well as law enforcement, which meant that Klan violence was really prosecuted at the local or state level. Klan activity threatened to undermine federal construction's efforts in the former Confederacy. Therefore, Republican governors and officials appealed to President Grant for help if local and state authorities were unable or unwilling. President Grant looked at the violence with increasingly concerns. He had a genuine regard for the well-being of the freed people who had supported the Union in large numbers and was, because see, the blacks also helped fight in this war. The Civil War was the slaves, and he granted them freedom, and he knew that these people deserved to be free and treated just as good as any other citizen of the United States of America. And this is what the Republicans did because they were a confederacy in the South. Regard for the well-being of the freed people who had supported the Union in large numbers and were concerned that the actions of the Ku Klux Klans were undermining the verdict of the Civil War. Sadly, the federal government resources for curbing this widespread violence were limited, especially within the U.S. military, which had downsized significantly since the end of the Civil War. Grant was nevertheless determined to do something. In a letter to Speaker of the House James G. Blaine, Grant wrote, "There is deplorable state of affairs existing in some portions of the South demanding the immediate attention of Congress. If the attention of Congress can be confined to the single subject of providing means for the protection of life and property in those sections of the country where the present civil authority fails to secure that end, I feel that we should have such legislation." Congress responded with 3 Force Acts aimed at stopping the violence, especially within the Ku Klux Klan. The Enforcement Act of May of 1870 prohibited banding together or going to in disguise upon the public highways and upon the premises of another to violate a citizen's constitutional rights. As the Klans were known for their disguises, this act called put them on notice. The Second Force Act of February 1871 put federal elections under federal supervision, mainly by federal judges and U.S. Marshal. Finally, the Third Force Act of April of 1871 empowered President Grant to suspend habeas corpus and use the military to enforce these acts. The The latter two force acts were also known as the Ku Klux Klan Acts. Grant didn't waste much time. On May 3rd of 1871, he issued a proclamation warning the terrorist acts of violence would not be tolerated by his administration. Grant tried to appeal to the people of the South. I do particularly exhort people of those parts of the country to suppress all such combinations, lawlessness by their own voluntary efforts. Grant remarked, and to maintain the rights of all citizens of the United States, and to secure to all such citizens the equal protection of the laws. Continuing, the president warned that I will not hesitate to exhaust the powers thus vested in the executive whenever and wherever it shall become necessary to do so, for the purpose of securing to all citizens of the United States the peaceful enjoyment of the rights guaranteed to them by the Constitution and laws. Due to limited federal resources, Grant decided to make an example of several counties in the Piedmont region of South Carolina, where some of the worst violence and lawlessness was taking place. After the Klan in the area failed to heed Grant's warning, he utilized the Third Force Act. President Grant suspended habeas corpus, the right of a detained person to request help from a court to determine if their imprisonment is lawful, and declared martial law in 9 mostly upstate South Carolina counties. Detachments of the 7th U.S. Cavalry were stationed in the area and worked to gather information and intelligence and local Klan activities. The military and U.S. Marshals then rounded up suspected Klan members for trial. The military then worked with the Department of Justice and Grant's Attorney General Amos Ackerman to prosecute KKK members suspected of engaging in terrorist violence. The Department of Justice had recently been established under the Attorney General authority after President Grant asked Congress to pass a law establish the office, which has done on June 22nd of 1870. The Justice Department aimed to protect the rights of newly freed African Americans and serve as the federal government's enforcement mechanism for the various laws described above. These efforts had missed success during the period of martial law. Many Klan members went into hiding or fled. Federal resources were then, and Grant's political advisory, both North and South, rallied against the alleged overreach of federal power as a violation of federalism. Issues of state and federal jurisdiction were often argued more vigorously than the seriousness of the crime itself. Ackerman resigned as Attorney General in the end of 1871, and in the federal government most vigorous period of enforcement, many convicted KKK members were given light sentences. Later, the increasing takeover by the Democrats of state and local governments made the Klan less relevant because white supremacists gained control of the laws in the South. But Grant's decisive actions temporarily reestablished law and order in the South, allowing African Americans and those who supported them some relief from the horrific violence surrounding their communities. Now you have gotten some history on the Republican Party. You can stop saying the Republicans are the ones who's doing all this terrorists in domestic terrorists in the United States of America. And when I keep telling you those Democrats, they know how to find their way in some kind of way to get in and try to control white. They try to want to continue to have white supremacy. Look at how many times they made an attempt on President Trump's life. Look at what's been going on, bombing the governor's house in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It just took place the other day. And then now this terrorist threats was made at Donald Trump's life. Ever since that man, before he even got in office, they was trying to kill him. So who's doing all of this? It's not the Republicans. They might be some in there now in the Republican Party because they creep their way in there to get close in the Republican Party so they can do what they do. Okay? They are infiltrated inside the Republican Party. Anybody that's doing that from the Republican Party are not real Republicans. They're infiltrators. Look at what the Democrats did. They opened out borders and they let all these people in from all these different places and giving them money and everything else like that during the election. Look at Kamala's, Biden, and Harris administration. And now Trump is left to try to clean this mess up. That's why he has called mass deportation So do your American history before you start attacking the president and saying the president is causing all of these problems in our country. And because that's why they wanted to kill him. That's why they burnt the flag. They did all of this stuff because who let them in? The Biden administration. Even when Obama was here, remember, always pay attention to these elections when they talk about closing the borders. Okay? It's always the Democrats that want to keep the borders open and overthrow this American government because they want and they will use anybody they can to get inside the KKK or these terrorist groups to do these things to terrorize American citizens. I am telling you, this is proof right here. So let's stop with the Republican Party, the conservatives. The Republican Party right now, today, President Trump was having his Easter dinner over at the White House. They had a night, it was beautiful. They had a prayer service. It was a prayer service and everything. When did the Democrat Party do that? That party want to have nothing but terrorism, okay? To the American, keeping you living in fear. And these black people riding for them. And those are our oppressors. Those are the ones who holding up our reparations. Okay? I did my research and I also did it here with you. President Grant takes on the Ku Klux Klan. Okay? He was protecting the lives of the slaves from the brutal treatment that we were getting from these Southern Confederates. Not the Union, but the Confederates. So with that being said, I gotta go. God bless.